Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Ridge Community Church Online. It's so great to be here with you today. My name is Tyler and I serve as our online campus pastor and would love to hear from you. Just go ahead and say hi in the chat if you're joining us on live.theridgecc.com or on YouTube, or if you're joining us later on demand, I want to welcome you. Just go ahead and leave a comment and just share with us what was your biggest takeaway from our time together today. And I have a question to start our time off together, and that is, hey, what is your favorite cooking show? Now, the reason why I ask that is my kids have actually just destroyed my Netflix algorithm in history as they logged onto my profile and started watching the TV show, Is It Cake? I don't know if you've seen that one yet, but it's basically these contestants have to bake and decorate a cake to make it look like a real-life object and then fool others into guessing, okay, is that the real object or is that the cake? They absolutely love it. They watch it during breakfast. They've been doing it on my profile, though, so the algorithm, it doesn't show me new shows like Stranger Things. It's showing me more cooking shows, and I was just blown away at how many cooking shows there are. In fact, there's so many. I mean, Guy Fieri has like a dozen of his own cooking shows, as well as Gordon Ramsay. You got the Master Chef, and then there's also British Bake Off, which a friend of mine told me the other day that was like her favorite show ever. So I've just stopped taking TV show recommendations from her. No, just kidding. But I mean, there's so many food shows. Which one is your favorite? And the reason why I think there's so many food shows is there's just something special when it comes to sharing food or sharing a meal with another person. In fact, there's so much power in that it actually sets us up for what we're going to be talking about today as we're continuing a series that we've just kicked off a couple weeks ago called 5 Ways to Love Your Neighbor. And what we're doing is we're going on this journey together as followers of Jesus, where we are partnering with God to help our neighbors or anyone near us begin to help them follow Jesus. Now, this isn't done in a way that's forcing our faith on people or pushing Jesus onto them like they're a project, but it's showing them how much they actually matter to God by showing them how much they actually matter to us, where we want to love our neighbors. Now, today, we're going to actually share 2 ways that we can love our neighbor, and they're related to food. And so our teaching pastor is going to help us understand that in just a little bit. But before we hear from her, we are actually going to sing to God together by singing a song that sings about the great things that God has done for us. And then after that, we're going to be excited to share with you one of the coolest announcements, one of the coolest things that we can share this year as a church. So make sure you stick around and share today's link with a friend and invite them, because this is something that you and they aren't going to want to miss. All right, let's head to the auditorium and let's sing to God together.
Put our hands together. And with one voice to sing us out, who breaks? Who breaks the power of sin and darkness? Whose love is mighty and so much stronger.
As we just sang that song, this is Amazing Grace. I mean, we're reminded of all the great things that God has done for us, and we want to share that with more people. In fact, so much so that we have a really, really great thing to share with all of you, and it's so great that we're actually going to go off location right now. We're going to head to a very special location, and one of our pastors, Forrest, is going to share with you what's going on. Go ahead and check this out.
What's up, everyone? My name is Forrest, and I am the campus pastor of our new Oak Creek Franklin campus. It's great to be here with you today, and I've got some exciting news to share with you. God's vision for our church is to bring the hope of Jesus into every home, and I love that vision. One of the reasons is that it's big and it's bold. It's something that we can't accomplish on our own without God, and it's also something we can't accomplish with just one physical location. That's why at the beginning of the year, we announced we were going to launch another campus in the Oak Creek Franklin area. You know, there's so many people here in our community that needs the hope of Jesus. And it is so much easier to reach them by having a great church in our community. So what we've been praying for over the last several months is a location to do just that. And let me tell you, God has moved in that time and opened up a door for a partnership we never even imagined. And that's why I am excited to be standing where I am today, which is the home of the future Oak Creek Franklin campus. This is Forest Ridge Elementary School, which is part of the Oak Creek Franklin School District, and right here on Drexel Avenue on the border of Franklin and Oak Creek. And not only does the school have a great name, Forest Ridge, but it has an amazing location as well. Look at what it shares a driveway with, IKEA. See, this location is so easy to find, right off the Drexel exit, and so accessible to so many communities here in southeast Wisconsin. So a reach from here is going to be amazing. And I know a lot of you might be saying, okay, a church in a grade school, what is that going to be like? Well, for one thing, it means we're going to be portable. And I can tell you that we've got experience doing this. The Ridge itself was portable for several years in a movie theater and then at Whitnell High School. And for me personally, it was an amazing experience to be a part of because it doesn't get much more community focused than our local schools. And that's what this is going to be, a partnership with our schools. And we need to be excited for that. Now, what does that mean for you? Well, now that we've got the location secured, it means that we are ready to take the next steps to launch our new campus this fall. And that is building our launch team. And if you're in the Oak Creek, Franklin, or surrounding communities, I want you to be a part of this team. Part of the team that not only gets to launch the church services here, but also gets to develop a unique partnership with the Oak Creek Franklin School District, one that has never been done before. So I need you to pray about being a part of this team. And then sign up for one of our commitment meetings by texting LAUNCH to the number below me. It's a meeting where you can ask any questions you might have, but more importantly, be a part of making this commitment together with us. Now, if you don't live in these communities, here's what I need you to do. Send us well. And part of sending us well is making sure that we don't leave a big hole in the serving teams in Greenfield and online. So I need you to step up and serve if you're not already. And to do that, text SERVE to the number below me. So again, text LAUNCH to join our team or SERVE to send well to the number below. And we look forward to seeing how God is going to bring the hope of Jesus to the people of this new location and community through you. Have an awesome day.
So exciting to be able to see the opportunity to actually launch that location in the Oak Creek, Franklin area at that elementary school. It's going to be so exciting to see how God moves in that. And like Forrest shared, if you live in that area, we want to encourage you to pray about and to join the launch team for this Oak Creek, Franklin location. In fact, we need 100 people to commit to joining this launch team by the end of this month in order for us to be able to launch this campus in the fall. So we want you to go ahead and jump in on this and just text the word launch to the phone number that you're going to see below us as Forrest shared, and you'll get the details for a meeting to learn more about what that means. And again, we want to send well in this location. So if you live in the Greenfield area or if you join us online, we are so grateful for you. Let us send them well. And if you are not yet serving on a team, I want to invite you to consider serving on a team. And you can get the information about that by just texting the word SERVE to our text number that you see below me. We'll text you back the information to get involved there. But we are so excited to do this, and we know one of the reasons why we can do this is through the faithful generosity of those who give financially to the vision to bring the hope of Jesus into every home. And so right now, we're going to take a moment in our service to go ahead and do that together. I want to invite you to take a moment. We can give digitally by visiting the website that you see below me, or you can download our app, and there's a little give button on the app that you can go ahead and give safely and securely there. We're going to take a moment. We're going to do this together to give towards this vision, and then we're going to head back to our auditorium to continue 5 ways to love your neighbor.
immediately to gain number 2 to ensure no coming immediate departure.
Hello.
Hello, hi. Welcome to Shared Plate.
Thank you.
Here, diners are seated with someone they don't know. I'll show you to your table. Your guest is here. This is Puna.
Hello.
Albert.
Hi.
I'll leave you two to get acquainted.
Hey, I'm Joshua.
I'm Nicole.
Nice to meet you.
Hello. Hi. That's for you.
Thank you.
Here at Shared Plate, we don't have menus.
No menus.
No.
So instead, we'll be mixing the culinary traditions of each table to make something brand new, just for you.
Well, I'm from East Tennessee.
My parents are of Indian origin.
Here, Queens.
The UK.
Well, cheers.
It's a new experience. My favorite vegetable is actually okra. So this
Oh,
is-
I love okra.
Yeah, so this is perfect.
My cat, Ducky. I love my mom, too, but I really love my cat.
You said you're a musician?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool.
Our neighbours introduced us to hot yoga.
I like hot yoga, yeah.
Well, you do you?
We would always sit and have family dinner. It just made us all close.
I totally connect with that.
Do you normally wear a bow tie to the airport?
Step across, like waist. Put your hands on the floor like that.
He definitely not do that.
You want to try it?
Okay.
Here, hold on. When you go to the airport, you don't think usually about company. All you're thinking about is, I'm going to make my flight on time. And we need that. There's too many things pulling people apart nowadays.
Everybody has a story. When you really get to know other people, it just breaks down barriers.
I think that if I got to eat at a place like that, I may actually consider a layover the next time I fly. Maybe. Well, hey, great to be with you here in the room in person, and awesome to be with you if you're joining us online as well. Hey, if you're catching up on demand, man, thanks for making the time and making it a priority to do that as well. If we haven't met yet, my name's Jody. I serve on staff here as the executive pastor at The Ridge, and I am super pumped to be with you as we enter week 3 of a series of messages we're doing all about sharing our faith with the people around us. And we've been doing this and calling it 5 ways to love your neighbor. But I gotta be honest, because when we were naming this thing, I lobbied for something different. I wanted to call it Don't Be Creepy. I know, it's way better, right? Admit it, because like somebody asks you a question about Jesus, or you try to talk about your faith and you get halfway in and then you kind of freeze. What is it about that? I mean, I get that Jesus thinks it is important. We have to know how to do it. He was really clear with his marching orders for those of us who are his followers. Look at what he says. He says, point blank, therefore go and make disciples of all nations. And he talks about baptizing and teaching them to obey. But what is it about that first part, that go and make, that is just so tough? I mean, really, it can get creepy fast, can it? Well, it doesn't have to. And that is what this whole series is all about. 5 super simple, super practical, super normal things that we saw Jesus do that we all can do too. Okay, so conveniently, these 5 things, they all spell out the acronym BLESS. And week 1 of this series, we learned that the B in BLESS stands for begin with prayer. And we want to specifically pray for the people who we consider our neighbors. And we just define that as anybody near us, those people who are already in our spheres of influence in our lives. And then week 2, we learned the importance of L, listening. And Forrest last week described the difference between hearing and listening. And man, those are 2 different things. We got tips and tricks to do that well. And then the first and the second week this week and next week as we wrap up this whole series, we're doing something together, and we want you to text the word bless to us. Okay, the reason we want you to text the word bless, there are two of them, is to say you're all in on this. And when you text us, and we know that you're all in, over the course of the whole summer, we're going to text you a couple times to encourage you. Hey, keep going, you can do it. And we're going to text you a couple times. Have you tried this yet? Here's a creative, fun idea, because summer is short and sweet in Wisconsin, so we want to make it a fun thing. And then when the summer's done, we'll stop texting. So that's one reason. But the other reason, and this is why I texted in and why I hope you text in too, it's so we can get a picture of how many of us are doing this together. And here's why I think that matters. When we can come back to you and say, hey, because you texted in, we now know that this many hundred of us, we're all in. We're doing it together. That allows you to kind of zoom out and go, man, that many of us? Like, I'm one of this many? That's whole streets that could look different, and condo complexes and apartment buildings and subdivisions and communities and cities that could look a lot different when we all agree to bless our neighbors together this summer. So man, I hope you text. So I'm going to say it one more time. Text bless to our text number 414-509-0339. You can do it today if you haven't already. You can do it next week too. Man, we are all in on this thing. Okay, so that's what we've done so far. That feels like a lot, doesn't it? I mean, that's only 2 weeks. So then we get to week 3 and we're here, and because we're all overachievers, we're going to do 2 letters of bless today. So get ready, because we're going to do it all while giving my very own kitchen table, this is mine, the look of shame. Trust me, I am fully aware of what a hot mess this thing is. Let me give you a tour of the disaster zones. Okay, over here we have the blue zone. Hopefully you can see the paint explosion that happened from some art projects gone awry. There's like white and red and pink and stuff too, but mostly blue for whatever reason. That was a popular color. You can look at the legs on the table, and the chairs for that matter, and see that I have a very naughty, very large puppy that has turned them into toothpicks. It's got a wobble to it because of that. If it makes it through tonight, that'll be a miracle. So that's really awesome. Over here, this is the varnish zone. And this is my favorite zone. What happened over here is a cheap mom bought dollar store glue. Apparently you shouldn't do that, because my daughter had to make a star student poster all about her. And it not only ate through the poster, which caused some tears, it ate through half my table, which really turned this into a gem. I mean, the thing is a Pinterest fail. It's funny because it's true. See, here's the thing. The hot mess that is my table, it makes me super hesitant to do the next letter in bless. And if you haven't figured it out already, man, the E stands for eat. Eat with the people, the neighbors you're trying to bless. And man, I push back when I hear that we're supposed to do it, but Jesus didn't. He did this all the time. I mean, for some of us, it was a safety thing during part of the pandemic, right? We want to say that matters. But if you're still hesitant this far in, like, what is that about for you? Maybe you're like me, and you've got some excuses in your back pocket that you pull out. In fact, I think there are 3 main categories of excuses. So, like, evaluate yourself, see if you fit into any one of these. Okay, the first excuse, I don't like having people in my home. You know that this is your bucket of excuses if you say stuff like, I'm not a good cook, my house is too small, my table is a disaster zone hot mess. I'm in bucket 1. You are in bucket 2 of excuses if you say, I won't know what to say. This is you if you're worried about awkward pauses in conversation, or you feel like you have to know the best question to ask to get them to tell the next story. And hey, this is also you if you are one of the 50% of people who consider themselves an introvert. You are in bucket 2. Okay, so we got one left. Bucket 3, I don't have the time. You know you're in this bucket if you use the word busy a lot. I'm too busy at work. I'm too busy with my kids' sports activities. I'm too busy to sit at a table and have a meal with my own family, let alone anybody else. I'm too busy. Any of those sound familiar? See, whatever the excuse is you're telling yourself, when you compare our excuses to the fact that Jesus did this all the time, Man, something's got to click. We're missing something that he understood. What is it that we're missing? Pastor and author Louis Giglio, he calls tables icons of influence. That makes me a little concerned about who I am influencing these days, but stay with me because I think it's a cool idea. And he continues on. This is what he says. He says, hey, when you let someone join you at a table, you're inviting them in, bringing them close, opening yourself in a way that's vulnerable. Man, I think that's it. I think that's what we fight against, and it's why we try to push back. But it is exactly what Jesus knew was true, and it's why he was so intentional about eating with people as well. See, he did it all the time. Jesus turned water into wine to keep a wedding reception going. He fed 5,000 on a hillside. Right before he was crucified, he made time to have dinner with his disciples. And a risen Christ wanted to get a message across to some of his friends, so he did it over breakfast on a beach. See, what he got that we're missing is the barriers that can be broken down when you eat with someone that can't be broken down in any other way. So, when I understand that, and I look at my table, all of it, I still cringe. I mean, it's a hot mess. It's not worthy of hosting people. But when I think about Jesus, I also think about the meal that's really had the biggest impact on my faith journey. And that meal happened at a table that wasn't worthy either. Here's how it started. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at his tax collector's booth. "Follow me and be my disciple," Jesus said to him. So Matthew got up and followed him. See, before we get to the actual table, you need some context. You got to understand that Jesus even talking to Matthew would have been a huge deal, because Matthew was a tax collector, literally considered a traitor by his fellow Jews, somebody that was given the stiff arm and the silent treatment because he made his living by jacking up tax rates on his fellow people. I mean, the fact that Jesus was even engaging at all would have been a scandal, let alone inviting him to follow you, Jesus. Come on. And it gets worse. Later, Matthew invited Jesus and his disciples to his home as dinner guests, along with many tax collectors and other disreputable sinners. I love that term, disreputable sinners. See, in today's fast food culture, we kind of lose the value sometimes of eating with people, but man, in Jesus' time, this was the epitome of social status. It signified your reputation, your standing in your community, who your friends were. So many things fell under the hierarchy of who you would share a meal with, that it was a make or break kind of thing. So when Jesus eats with not just one traitor, tax collector, Matthew, but here Matthew tells us there were many of them there, that is a big deal. It's even bigger when he goes on to say these other disreputable sinners were there, because the language that he used to describe that term, it actually was just a blanket term that was meant anybody living an illicit lifestyle. So think about what that means about Jesus and who Matthew invited to the party. I mean, there were so many different kinds of sinners there that Matthew had to use a blanket statement to explain it to us, to qualify and cover everybody. That's pretty scandalous. I mean, Jesus just was all in. So here's the thing. Before we get too far into this meal at Matthew's table, I need you to do me a favor. I know it's kind of weird to ask you to do me a favor. Go with it, okay? Because I don't want you to miss the impact of this meal, the full impact that Matthew needs it to have, which is why he wrote it. Okay, I want you to actually, in your mind's eye, picture Matthew's table. How big do you think it is? What was the shape of the table? What was the material that was used to make the table? And maybe you even want to close your eyes and kind of imagine this, but I want you to think through, give Matthew a seat at your table, and then I want you to give Jesus a seat too. Pick out a chair, place him somewhere around the table, and then I want you to put some tax collectors and other disreputable sinners around the table as well. Maybe you put the faces of people you know around the table in their place. And then the last thing that I want you to do, and you really have to do this with intention, is to put yourself at a seat at the table. Don't stand outside and look in at them. Sit and eat with them. And as you're taking the first few bites of food and as dinner's kind of getting started, what is Matthew serving? Does it taste good? I mean, what's the conversation about? Who do you think Jesus is? Because if you aren't sure, I still think there had to be something engaging about him and about how he would have conversation. Like, was he laughing? Was he telling jokes? Was he just listening? Was he asking good questions? He did that a lot. And just as everybody kind of has their nerves settle a little bit, and just as you start to exhale just a little bit, this happens. But when the Pharisees saw this, I think the Pharisees would have freaked everybody out. Because see, Pharisees were the religious elite in the day. And what you need to understand about this meal is that it probably happened outside, kind of like in Matthew's backyard. So anybody walking by would have been able to see the dinner and who was eating with who. So these Pharisees look and they see Jesus sitting with all of these sinners and traitors, and they go, has he lost his ever-loving mind? What is going on? Now here's the thing we need to remember. Who wrote this? This account was written by Matthew, by the traitor, by the tax collector, by the guy who didn't think he was going to be worthy of a call from any rabbi, let alone the Savior of the world. Clearly, he wants us to understand what's going on. And you know what else? When Matthew was writing this, man, he could still smell the food. He knew the seat that he was in. He knew what direction he had to look Jesus in the eye. And he can just picture all of it unfolding, and then he continues to write loud enough so that they could all hear it from the street. The Pharisee asks, hey, why does your teacher eat with such scum? And in my mind's eye, at least, I kind of just think everything stops in this moment. Like if you're eating, you put the food down. And if you're Matthew, what do? If I'm him, I'm just like going to look at the people who are at the table with me to kind of gauge their reaction. And then he's going to look at you. And whatever baggage and sins you have in your life, either in the past or even right now, man, all that junk that makes you feel like my table looks unworthy to be sitting there in that moment. Now somebody's throwing that in your face. And hey, if you're Matthew, they're not just throwing it in your face, they're doing it in your home, in front of your guests, in front of your new leader, and everybody knows it's true. That's the kicker. Because see, this Pharisee, he's a jerk, but he's not a liar. Those people at that table were unworthy. They were scum. They didn't deserve to be sitting and eating with Jesus, at least not according to that culture. That is exactly Matthew's point. Jesus changes the game. And if you believe that he does, man, then every meal you have from here on out, every person that you eat with from this day forward, it's got to be different. It all should be impacted by whatever it is that Jesus says as a response to this Pharisee. And this is what he says. When he heard this, he said, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. Matthew needs you to hear this. He doesn't want to waste the fact that he shared every embarrassing detail of this dinner party. Jesus didn't care who he shocked. Because see, eating with people who didn't think that they deserved God's love, that was exactly the way that we could show the world that it is wrong. It was true then and it's true now. And Jesus doesn't stop there. He added, now go and learn the meaning of this scripture. I want you to show mercy, not offer sacrifices. For I've come to call not those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners. Saying, man, you're not getting it right unless you're living this out. You got to eat with people the world would be shocked to find at your table. You don't want them in your house, go out to eat. You're not a good cook, DoorDash. You're too busy. Hey, can you prioritize like one of the 21 meals you're going to have any given week to make time to eat with people who don't understand yet that God really does love them, just them? It's not rocket science. Anybody can do this. And anytime I push back and use one of my excuses to try to avoid eating at my lovely table, I place myself back at Matthew's table. And I really go there. And I remember that Jesus was willing to sit at my table with me, even though I didn't deserve to sit with him. And you can't lose that. But don't get stuck there, because you also got to remember that Jesus didn't stop there either. And Matthew wants you to understand that. He wants you to understand the future story that your neighbor could write, just like Matthew did, if you do eat with them. How are they going to be different in the future because of the story they're able to write about the meals that you shared? And who are you in the story that they're going to write? Are you the Pharisee? Are you Jesus? Are you Matthew? What does that look like? How will they be different tomorrow because of the mercy that you showed today? And are they going to be able to write someday that your table is where they understood for the very first time the depth and the reality that Jesus, he loves them, just them, for who they are? And don't underestimate the fact that you're going to benefit from this too. Your faith journey will be forever changed. How is your faith going to change when you don't just believe in Jesus, but you start living like him too? So you got to eat with people. And here's the thing, when you go and make disciples by eating with them, my guess is that you're just going to kind of inherently know the next letter in our acronym BLESS. That's the funny thing, man, about this BLESS process. It's natural, it's normal, it's not creepy. It's an overflow of a relationship that naturally develops when you actually care about the people that you're trying to bless, and that's kind of the whole point. So by the time you pray and you listen and you eat, you're going to know that next S, man, that stands for serve. And Jesus did this in an amazing way during his final meal before he was crucified with the 12 closest followers, his disciples. See, as this meal was starting, the 12 would have been in the upper room together. They kind of would have been like scanning, looking for a servant who should have been there to begin the normal pre-dinner protocol. And probably as they're looking around, in my mind, I pictured Jesus getting up and going over to grab a towel. And as he's walking back, they probably catch on to what he's doing because they know why he's walking back to them. He's going to do what he's going to do to serve them. He's going to wash their feet. And this would have blown their minds again, because no king, no rabbi would ever think about putting their reputation at stake to wash somebody's nasty feet. Because see, this was servant's work and not any servant. This was reserved for the lowest of the low servant. I mean, washing people's feet in this culture would have been like the OG Dirty Job, if that show existed back then. Because, man, these guys, they wore sandals and they walked on muddy, dirty, stanky roads that were filled with animal waste and just filth. It was awful. It's probably why Peter had such a strong reaction when he saw what Jesus was doing. He, Jesus, came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," Peter said, "you shall never wash my feet." Now listen, Peter's not being belligerent. He's trying to protect Jesus' reputation and kind of stand in the gap for his leader. But Jesus stops him. He answers, "Unless," it's like this is a prerequisite. I'm teaching you something. "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." Light bulb for Peter. He gets it. He's like, okay. "Then Lord, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." See, Peter got what we need to get. Serving in this moment for Jesus, lowering himself to do servant's work, it wasn't just a kind gesture. It was meant to catalyze a movement, and here's why. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked him. It's like, dude, I didn't touch your nasty feet for no reason. Let's debrief. Let's make sure you really get this. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. You've placed me in the right box in your life. You get the significance that I represent. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Hey, as your Lord, I'm telling you to serve other people. See, serving is how we show the gospel to people. Talking about it, teaching it, that's cool, that's important. It's just not enough on its own. We got to show them what love feels like. We got to let them try it on for size, and serving them is how we do this. Now, full transparency, this step in the bless process was the one that I got the most freaked out about when I started trying this out. Because I was worried about how to find a practical way to not be creepy and still serve people. I was worried that I'd get B-L-E, into it and not know what to do to serve. And I was worried, man, like, am I going to just be confused? What if I offer it and they refuse it? What if they ask for something and it's way beyond my capacity? All the fears. But here's the thing, it never once happened. Like, not ever. In all of the years and with all of the people that I've tried blessing. Hasn't. And I think Jesus would just tell us to not overcomplicate it, to not worry. By the time you get that far into a real, authentic relationship, it's probably going to come to you and you're inherently know how to bless them. But in case you didn't, you can take a cue from Jesus. There were 3 things he kept in mind when he was serving people, and I think we need to as well. When he was doing that, he paid attention to proximity, he served personally, and he served powerfully. Okay, first, proximity. Jesus served those who were right in front of him. Here's the thing, he was fully God and fully human. So while he's here, he could have healed every malady, cured everything, and fixed everybody's everything all at once, but he didn't. He chose to focus on the people who were right in front of him because proximity mattered to Jesus, and he needs it to matter to us too. So for my husband and I, it's looked like this. We've chosen to focus in our bless efforts on the people who we come into contact with all the time because of the school that our kids go to or the activities that they're in. So listen, it's not as glamorous as having dinner at my beautiful table, but sharing snacks and drinks on the sidelines of a soccer game, it's a great way to start a conversation. And I'll tell you what, it led to really practical opportunities to serve families by just carpooling and exchanging rides to practice and games. Again, it's not complicated. The second thing that Jesus focused on when he was serving people is to do it personally. See, Jesus assured people that he wasn't serving them for the attention of it. And when we approach the idea of serving people with real humility, man, we make sure that we protect the dignity of the people that we're blessing. And it also allows them to see just our authenticity in this process. I have a neighbor who has been MIA for a while, and last week this person showed up at the kids' bus stop in the morning with their dog, and it's like a well-known thing. I just always show up at the bus stop in the morning with our dog. So the kids get on the bus and they leave, and this person looks at me and they go, "Hey, you taking your dog for a walk?" I'm like, "Well, today I am, let's go." And for the next hour, this person just like unloaded about all this really tough stuff that's going on in their marriage, with one of their kids in particular, and just life. And it was heavy. And then for the first time in the handful of years that I've known this person, they used the word pray. I'm like, okay, God, who knew? Who knew walking my dog was going to be a God thing? But it allowed me to be a non-judgmental, listening ear when my neighbor needed it. And the final way that Jesus served people was powerfully. I mean, when Jesus served, he accessed God's power. And I don't think God wants us to hesitate to call on him to act out too. I mean, when he's going to get the credit, man, that's like his sweet spot. He loves coming in and helping us in these kinds of things. We shouldn't hesitate. And for us personally, Man, that's something that's been the most surprising, and it's happened right here. This is where this has played out for my family. Because see, at this very table, in these actual chairs, kids from 3 other families that we've been trying to bless have come over to our house and had Eggo waffles before school for a few mornings in the week. Now, listen, it's super practical, right? Those parents got to go to work on time. We get the kids on the bus. But I'm telling you, it's so much more than that. I am actually telling you, I think Eggo waffles in our house are an act of God. And I mean that with every fiber of my being, because it took us 7 years to get there. Like, the story of how we got into our house, how we actually bought it, should have never happened. I mean, it's crazy. And the barriers and the roadblocks that got broken down for us to establish the relationships of the people whose kids were at this table in these seats, like, it's crazy stuff, man. I don't have the time to explain it, and even if I did, you probably wouldn't believe me. I mean, the fact that they trust us with their children, that's like supreme in my world. I don't have an explanation for it. I don't, other than God wanting, with great intention, to knit our stories together. Man, it's an amazing thing to see him work. So listen, by the time you've prayed, and you've listened, you've eaten, how you serve, I'm telling you, man, it's probably going to be obvious. Now, obvious doesn't mean easy, but it will be clear. It took me a really, really, really long time to get on board with this idea of blessing my neighbors. And if I'm super honest, it sometimes is still a struggle for me. And I had to kind of think about why as I was preparing for our time together. And when I started to dig below the layers, I think it's because, like, I see my husband do this, and he is just a natural at it. And then I come here and I see Mark and I see Forrest, who you saw earlier today, and just some of our other pastors do this. And it's like a natural overflow of who they are. It just seems like it oozes out of them. And I don't got that. I feel awkward and I get frustrated that I feel awkward. It's like, God, I work at a church. I should be pretty good at this. And before I worked here, I worked in a communications field where I wrote a lot and I talked a lot. And like, God, I love you. Why can't I talk about you in an eloquent way to people? Why is it so hard? And what I realized, what I'm realizing, it's a process, is that I needed to get out of my own way. Because the second I made it less about me and how I was feeling when I was doing it, and more about the people that I was trying to bless, God started showing up. I mean, it wasn't about me anymore. And the second I really started getting out of my own way and surrendering to the fact that I needed to be willing to do whatever it was that he was going to ask me to do willingly, it changed. I wasn't worried about awkward pauses or conversations. I wasn't worried about the hot mess of the table that I have. I didn't care if my neighbors rejected me. I trusted that God was going to show up, and he did. See, here's the thing that I need you to know about blessing. It is not rocket science. It is obedience. And that can be a tough thing. You've probably heard the saying that actions speak louder than words. I just don't think it's an accident that Jesus used so few words when he was trying to sum up and challenge us to bless the people around us. He said, go and make disciples. And if Jesus really is your Savior, if he is your Lord, if he's the King of your life, then shouldn't the rest of your life be spent doing the things that he tells you to do? Go and make. Go and make disciples because he says so. Go and make because somebody did it for you. And go and make because whoever you bless, those neighbors, their worlds are going to be forever changed when you do. Let me pray for us. God, we just thank you for how your son modeled all of these steps in the blessed process. God, would you help us to have boldness in how we try to live them out in relational and practical and completely normal ways in our everyday life. God, would you give us the opportunities we need, the open doors, to have real conversations and provide real care in an authentic way for our neighbors. God, would they be open to you moving in their lives? God, may we be a church that doesn't just come to meet here in the room or watch online or listen to a podcast and then call it quits for the rest of the week. God, may we be people who want to be your church by reflecting and living more like your son when we leave. God, may we be people who get this right. God, thank you so much for your son and what he means to all of us, because it helps us understand how we want that same hope for the people we're trying to bless. We pray this in his mighty name. Amen.
All right, well, hope that you will actually go and eat with and serve one of your neighbors as we are committing to blessing our neighbors this summer. In fact, I want to give you one more chance to text in and to say, I'm in on this. I'm going to commit to blessing my neighbors this summer. Just go ahead and text the word blessed to the text number you see below me. Let us know that you're in, and we'll send you some helpful resources along the way. We won't spam you. We just want to encourage you and let you know, hey, hundreds of us, we are doing this together. Way to go. If you heard anything today that was encouraging to you at all, here's what I just ask you to do. Just go ahead and give this video a thumbs up on YouTube. That way others are going to be more likely to see it and more likely to watch it and be encouraged by this video. I also want to encourage you just to go ahead and take a moment, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And the reason for this is you'll then be notified when other videos are available, so you won't miss out on anything that is shared. And so go ahead and subscribe, and make sure that you join us next week when we wrap up 5 Ways to Love Your Neighbor with one final way that will actually help us show others how much they matter to God. And so as we do this, we are actually fulfilling God's vision for us as a church to bring the hope of Jesus into every home. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day.